Welcome to the Inspired to be Authentic podcast, a podcast where we converse with people who are living their most authentic lives. We get real with our guests and talk openly about how they live with courage to be themselves. We explore barriers they have overcome to be more authentic and aligned to themselves and their purpose. I am your host, Matt Lansadell. I am a transformative life coach, empathic healer, and spiritual teacher. I specialize in teaching people how to heal shame and trauma and embody their authentic self so they can enjoy more meaningful connections in their lives. My areas of expertise are working with highly sensitive people, empaths, and gay men to develop a stronger sense of self-worth. This is episode 34, and we are going to be talking about sexual empowerment. So this is going to be a great episode for you if you are somebody who carries shame around sex and sexuality, and you want to liberate yourself and connect into that beautiful energy of life force, sexuality, creativity. I have a feeling today is going to be a great episode if this is you. So we're going to be talking with Ginger Jen. We're going to be learning a little bit about her story and how she got into this work. We're going to be talking about what does sexual empowerment mean? What does it feel like to be sexually empowered? What do you think causes sexual disempowerment? And what can someone do to feel more sexually empowered? And how can we help each other become more sexually empowered in relationships? So the Inspired to be Authentic podcast and YouTube channel is listener and viewer supported. If you are enjoying the content, you can support me by heading over to my Patreon page in the show notes to support the show. It helps me to continue making inspirational content for you to consume. I want to read a review, a really beautiful review titled Insightful by Liver J. He says, very insightful podcast with great guests who bring a wide range of topics, very impactful and personal with life examples, and makes you think about your journey. That's awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So without further ado, welcome. Welcome, Ginger. How are you doing?
I'm pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for a couple of weeks now. So
yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm actually really, really excited, and it feels like we've been speaking forever. So yeah, I love it already.
Yeah, me too. So I want to let the audience know a little bit about you, and then I'll let you kind of share your story after. But Ginger, they has been on a mission for the last 4 years to become someone who helps deeply heal sexuality. From being an escort in Australia, working in the industry for others, and then working for themselves. Ginger noticed, firstly, how much their own sexuality had become more clear and more enjoyable. And secondly, that there was a mass problem around sex, specifically with men trying to follow the porn star type of way of, or on the other side, that men felt completely shut off from full intimacy, relating, and sex because men were so nervous around any woman that they were with. Ginger's path kept aligning with males who had ADHD or autism, or generally quite shy. So the feeling was to them help uplift those men in intimate situations in order to help them grow confidently. Ginger then went on a mission to learn Tantra through workshops and trained in sex, love, and relationships coaching with the Vita course by Leah Martin, which has now brought Ginger to their mission on helping heal the collective of busy minds around their self-love and sexuality. Awesome stuff. You're doing a lot of really, really amazing things.
Thank you. It's a mouthful, that wasn't it?
It is, but there's a lot of really neat points in there. I'm curious, what got you into this work?
Woo, a long journey. So as my introduction already said, I started sex work in Australia, and that was probably the main point. Definitely the main point of it, because before that I was not involved in that sort of scene at all. Well, I've been to a couple of kink parties, but, never thought it would come to me actually helping other people with their sexuality. So probably started on a mission to gain a bit more money for myself, which I'd never had before. And then it went through a few different missions working for other people who were helping guide sex workers and escorts, and then ended up working for myself with escorting because it got a bit, I didn't want to pay someone basically half the wage, half my wage, while I was doing all that sort of work. And throughout the time of me being an escort, I think the main bit about it was when I was working for other people is I had to put on a show. I had to be very porn starry and very just kind of lie about how much pleasure I would have, and it could be very intense. My body might have not been ready. They might have booked me like 6-7 people in the day, which would have been absolutely exhausting. And it ended up that when I went to work for myself, I was able to choose my own people who were coming because I was getting all my money. I was like able to see less people. I don't want to say do people, but see less people. And basically I would be able to advertise in the way that would really suit me as well. Because with the other advertisements, they made me say some things that I would never say in my life. And they just made me go a little bit, made me cringe a little bit. And, people would then come to you and be like, oh, it says that you do this on your profile. And you're like, I don't want to do that. So then when I came into working for myself and I came at a more gentle approach with it, I ended up seeing more gentle men and men who did have ADHD, autism, or had never really been touched in a really sensitive, sensual way by a woman, or maybe not let a woman be touching them in that way, because like they're so used to being the doer. And so it's like I really, really had in my heart that I just wanted to allow men to receive. And so the journey came from basically that, and then realizing through tantric workshops that what I actually offer was hugely tantric, and really, really just basing my work then on the sort of sensuality side of things, which was really, really healing for so many of these men. And and then I just kept on getting more of a calling to help more people. I also helped a few couples when I was on that mission as well. And they were couples who'd maybe been together for about 7-8 years and they'd not had someone else since then. And they wanted to open the relationship, but not in a way that it would cause emotions of someone else coming in. So, paying for like a sex worker to come in was really, really useful for them. And again, with my profile, it kind of stated this sensitive side. So like what you do, it's like with my empathic side was on there for people to see, and people really, really liked that, and it helped them feel more comfortable with me. And then I was able to also kind of gently come through with communication and boundary settings within those sessions. But then again, when I opened into sort of the tantric world and saw that boundaries and communication were super, super strong, I decided that, this is obviously naturally coming to me, and this seems to be my life calling, to be able to help people with their sexuality, with communication, with feeling empowered, because I don't know what is more empowering than having a conversation and actually expressing to each other our likes, wants, desires, needs, or what we actually don't want as well. So it just unraveled to this, and then ended up finding out about Layla Martin, who is like, whoa, so incredible in so many ways, because she's learned from India, she's learned from a science approach with university, and Taoism as well, which is really, really prominent within her learning. So like she's bought all of that and put it into a course, and I was like, what's the best course I can ever take to learn a bit more deeper about this? And Layla Martin's, was it? So that's why I did that, and then ended up doing the course for like, to be honest, I've done the main part of it, sex, love, and relationship coaching, but I'm still learning about conscious dating and tantric sex now, 2 years later, because it's so in depth. But anyway, that's my journey and the basis of my journey. So I'm still on it, obviously. I'm going to be journeying for the rest of my life, but it's like that click of knowing what it is that I need to do through something that really socially isn't applauded. You know, people don't talk about it. So I'm really, as well, just realizing the more and more I do this and get into this, the more I need to open minds about sexuality and the ways that we are, and, you know, sex workers' rights and all of this. I want to be able to help all these people to feel more empowered to just express themselves for who they are.
I love that. I really love that. I think there's so much shame in our world around sexuality. And I really have noticed in myself in the last few years just how much shame and conditioning I've inherited from our culture around sexuality, around, you know, thinking certain aspects of sexuality is disgusting and gross, and we should hide parts of ourselves, and shaming people who are sexually liberated and these sorts of things. And I want the listener to be mindful when you're listening. Be mindful of your own conditioning and your own judgments. I call them like micro judgments. They kind of play in the background, and like just be mindful when you're listening or watching this, because I'm going to be doing the same thing. As I learn from you, I want to really be cautious of my own and mindful of my own micro judgments that come up around sexuality, because it's coming from a place of shame, and we don't want that, right? That's just holding us back from accessing parts of ourselves that are healing and liberating. And so with that being said, I'm curious for you, because there was a time when you weren't in the sex work trade, and you probably carried some stigmas around what that would be like. And then now you have the inside scoop. Okay, so what did you learn about the sex trade that you could share with us from an insider's point of view to help us understand and maybe break through some of the stigma?
Yeah. So I learned from it that there's so many people doing this work that, well, they don't tell everyone else because of the shame that so many people carry about it. So you go around, there's so many people that are sex workers that you would have no clue are sex workers. So there's a lot of masking involved.
Yeah.
I'd also say there's a lot of people that really love doing it, and people that really love to give and receive and do all this work. There are also amazing, amazing men who come to you, or amazing humans that come to you. I never had a non-binary person or, you know, woman directly, but I had the couples, and so many people that saw me, more good people than bad people, basically. And you do also see good looking people as well, because I think there's a lot of stigmas around like the men who go and seek escorts. And then, you know, some people would say to me things like, you know, even friends, I don't need to see an escort, you know, you can go anywhere and get some sex or whatever. And it's just like, you know, it's not really about that. And another stigma around the men who go and seek escorts as well, like even if you're going to see someone who might be married, an escort's probably saving their marriage, because there's so many marriages which lack that sex and love life, which is kind of sad, because they've obviously not had the best communication around that throughout. And maybe, for example, in heteronormative situations, then you have the woman who's had a baby once, and like, you know, they grow old together, they've been together for a while, and then finally, after such a long time of just accepting sex and just kind of having pity sex with their husbands, they're just like, no, it's really shit, and I can't I don't want to have it anymore, and they just get bored of it. And I think, but then obviously they're not having the communication. It's really, really sad that they've not had that, and that's why I kind of do what I do now. But it's Yeah, okay. I don't know whether I'm losing track a little bit, but it's like having the men that are coming to you, basically, even if they are married, they're usually doing it in purpose to serve them and getting their needs met. But that it's not as if they come in and they're really because the people who come in and see you, as soon as they've paid you and they're in your presence, they are like your slave, they worship the grounds off you. And this is another thing that is stigmatized, is like my sexual empowerment mainly came to me from this work, because I had never ever had someone be so beautifully just I was just like a goddess all of a sudden, from being this like bullied kid and like not feeling very attractive at all, and having not the best sex, being like meh, can take it or leave it, to someone really like putting their energy and effort into me and like giving to me. I'd never had that. So like the people that come to you, it's not like you're doing all the work, which is another thing people think. They are actually there to give to you, and they are there to smother you with love and affection. And it feels pretty good to get that alongside a good pay slip. I'm trying to think of anything else. It's a very, clean job. This is a very big thing within the whole sexual health aspect of it. People think that sex workers and the people who seek sex workers are probably riddled with STIs, but they're usually the most likely to get more checks. So a sex worker would get regular checks every 3 months, because, I tried to go more than that and got in trouble by the doctors. But basically, the people that seek escorts, and you, who is an escort, gets checked up very regularly, because, if you've got something, you're going to give it around so many people, aren't you? So, and then another thing is that when you're doing it, no, you're not doing some do bareback sex, but what a question. I've been asked that so many times. Oh, what about STIs? Like, what do you use? I'm like, condom. It's like all of a sudden these things don't exist in the world, and then it's like, yeah, you might be getting these micro judgments. So yeah, checking in with yourself and checking in with myself, really. Like, I'm sometimes I have to like even think about, God, should I be judging myself like for this work like that I did? And yeah, there's so much destigmatization we need of it, but I think the main things are we aren't all riddled with STIs. We are normal people who want to feed ourselves. We want to live in a nice place. We want to go to where we want to go. Some people do it to feed their children, because for so long I had work, and most womb owners get work and they're only on minimum wage, which doesn't allow you to do the things that you want to do. And then before you know it, you're relying on a partner, your boyfriend or whatever, to do everything, like pay for you for everything. So, it just gives you that financial independence as well, which is really, really empowering. So it is a really, really empowering job. So those stigmas, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that's a perfect segue. Let's talk a bit about sexual empowerment. What does that even mean?
Good questions. So I would say sexual empowerment is being truly authentically within yourself, your own body, feeling confident to show yourself in exactly the way that you are, not trying to be anyone else. And yeah, I think, and not judging yourself. I think sexual empowerment as well, it's not like, I don't know, when I think of it, or if I think of the question, it's sort of like, oh, is it like you get the vibrator out and you're having like multiple orgasms? No, sexual empowerment is literally you as a being fully authentic to yourself
and
everyone else.
I think so many people struggle with that, right? It's like you think about even like us talking about this, like I'm just noticing what's happening in my body. Like if there's like, am I doing something wrong? Do you know what I mean? It's like we all get these messages in our lives around that are so disempowering about sex. Don't talk about it, you know? So it's really interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is because I feel, and I've done tons of podcasts on this topic, but I think I'm meeting a different part of myself right now. I'm learning how to truly let go of the disempowering aspects that are holding me back. And I'm really learning how to be sexually empowered. And I think I want to add to your definition, because I think it's beautiful. And what I would add would be it's the use of the voice. What I'm learning about empowerment is that it's about expression, and it's about, you know, and one of the most powerful ways that we express ourselves is through our voice. And I think, you know, speaking up for what your body desires, speaking up for what feels good, speaking up for what doesn't feel good, you know. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, is people have a hard time setting sexual boundaries because they don't want to be, it's very vulnerable to tell somebody what you need, what your body wants and desires. And I think sometimes people just go along with the ride. And I think that's what I'm learning to heal, is like, I am worthy and I deserve to be able to communicate to my partners what it is that I want, what feels good for me in my body. So I just felt I wanted to add that, because the voice and the expression of empowerment is so powerful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that as well, because there's so many things that you could say, and then trying to chop it down into a segment of a little podcast is like, okay, so I really appreciate you saying that. And I feel it's definitely been able to help me speak my truths, and yeah, living authentically within how I express myself, with it being bodily movements and how I use my voice. And even like, I think one thing that's really, really important that people don't seem to realize when they are in that sexual element with a partner or with themselves, is that the voice can actually help aid you get the most beautiful sensations and orgasms, and we forget about it. We close it off. And it's closed off when we are away from the bedroom, aren't that communicative, don't know how to express our boundaries, don't know how to express ourselves in front of other people. So that definitely coincides with then, how are you in the bedroom, and how are you going to let this pleasure run through you if you can't open your mouth and use your voice? Like, it brings literally all these energy channels so that your whole body is connected. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What's coming through right now is this whole notion of like self-concept. Like you talk about opening the body, and I think it's like so important to even to open the mind as well, because I think we all have this idea of who we are, right? And we go through life with this self-concept of who we are, and a lot of them is like, you know, for women, I think it's like, I'm the good girl, or, you know, for guys, it's like, you know, whatever. Like we have these different kind of boxes that we put ourselves in. And I think, you know, sexual empowerment and empowerment in general requires us to come out of those boxes a little bit, and play with different alter egos or different personas or different roles that allow us to kind of taste all the aspects of the rainbow and not limit us, right? And I think, again, you talk about authenticity. This is where I'm really at in my life right now, is learning how to taste different aspects of the rainbow. And that doesn't mean that I have to be that just because I tasted that, right? So it's like, I just think that that's, for me, that's what empowerment really embodies, is allowing yourself to come out of the confines that you've told yourself that you have to be, and just celebrate authenticity in the moment, right? I think that is authenticity for me. It's like, how does the moment, how is the moment informing how I want to show up right now? Not the the constructs or the concepts that I've created about who I am? Can I let the moment tell me who I am, as opposed to this, kind of broad range of belief systems that I've prescribed to?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what does it feel like to be sexually empowered for you? Like, how does that show up for you?
Mm-hmm. In fully sexually empowered moments, I just feel confident. I feel grounded. I feel authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest word of it, I think, is just authentic, just happy to be yourself, and living life with pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
living life in love, being open to love. Yeah, there's so many things. It's like the gateway to complete bliss and ecstasy.
Mm-hmm. There's this notion between performative and pleasure-based sex. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I feel like, and I'll speak for men, or at least the men I work with and myself, is like, when we get into this performative mentality, it can be very disempowering, because we're putting pressure on ourselves. We feel like we have to be attached to the outcomes, right? Whether that be ejaculation or having an erection the whole time that you're having sex. And then when we don't live up to this performative place, we end up shaming ourselves. And we're like, I'm a failure, I didn't do good enough. And that can be one thing that really disempowers. And then you move over into this pleasure-based mentality, which is about not attaching to outcomes, allowing your body to show up and be as it's going to be, being more embodied, more present moment awareness, and less kind of being in your mind, less ego. So they're two very distinct ways of engaging in sex, in my opinion. And one for me is very empowering, and one for me can be very disempowering. I'm curious about your thoughts on those two concepts.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so shortening the question, because my ADHD brain was like listening. and then it was like, whoa, what? So it's about
I'll rephrase it.
Performance-based sex and
Pleasure-based.
non-performance-based and pleasure-based.
Yeah. So performative and pleasure. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for reinstating that. So within the performance, I mean, within meeting with so many men as well, it's not just the men, it's us too, and like, it's everyone, because of so within performance based, so this is kind of like what I had to do on the start of my journey, and it just felt so weird. It's something that we've all kind of been made to feel is normal, because usually of the communication that we have between it, and like what we've seen as part of our first viewings of sex being from porn, and being from like, I mean, in lad culture, it's all like, when you're a teenage kid, and nowadays everyone's got their smartphones and stuff, they'll get out this picture of like boobs and like the biggest dick you've ever seen, or like this man with this like massive like frame of a body, and just, oh yeah, and then they'll see that and they'll think that's normal. So when you think that's normal, and they think that that's what the other person wants from sex, that they've seen on these things, like even like, I don't know, I think I've never really, I mean, I have watched porn, but thankfully I never got too obsessed with it. So I might have seen some gay porn, but just thinking about that, and it's just like, there's just so many henchmen and like doing all these things, and then you've got these female performers who are like perfectly reconstructed boobs and yonis and whatnot, and people don't realize that they're not real, and that these are actors on a camera, so that they think that this is what they have to do in the bedroom. And then, yeah, and then people are in the bedroom doing all these things, and you can get pleasure from that because it's kind of like a role play. But then you go away feeling a bit depleted. You're like, oh, my bits don't look like that. I don't look like that. So like when I'm making all these faces, what's he? And then you go way too much in the head when you're actually doing, when you're actually having sex, and you're like, oh, I need to make this noise now, and I need to make a really loud coming sound, and like I need to squirt. Why am I not squirting? And everything goes into the head, and then yeah, and then you've not actually got the pleasure that you desire. And if you ejaculate at the end of these things, generally the person who's ejaculating tends to feel very depleted and really exhausted, and then they have to just like sleep for the rest of the day or something, and then go around the whole week feeling depressed. And whereas like, yeah, and then whoever else, like if you have a womb, then tend to be going around thinking, oh my god, that was so depressing and boring, and like, where's my vibrator? I need to finish myself off now. And then they don't know also, usually we're just so much like out of our body with this, because it's very much like kiss, touch, orgasm in these things that we have. And then that's just going, it's literally going from the head and the ego. And then pleasure base, I think that answers the question enough. Pleasure base is coming from your body, learning to listen to your body and learning to communicate what your body needs, what your body desires, and your partner being able to communicate that as well. And you can get this pleasure by doing things that you really enjoy each day. So it doesn't even come from like, yeah, definitely doing self-pleasure practices help, where you're using your body, you're cherishing your body, you're loving your body, you're giving your body so much love and attention, because this is what every human being needs. And so when we get that from partners, we feel really special. And when we're on our own, we need to feel special as well. So self-pleasure, like coming from sex from a pleasure aspect, like when we are self-pleasuring in this very embodied way, this can really just up our sex game to the absolute max. And not even our sex game, our energy levels, and being able to go out and really enjoy ourselves truly from the bottom of our whole being, just enjoying ourselves. So yeah, doing it from pleasure is just like, it's just true enjoyment. Again, it's like popping into your own body to be authentic, communicative, and yeah, you go, it's like basically performative, no energy after. When it's not performative and it's pleasure based, energy after. Energy, depletion, and energy. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And then what I took from what you just shared is, like, I'll use the box analogy, like boxing ourselves in. When we're performative, we're trying to play out a role or something that we've seen from either porn or something like that. And when we're pleasure-based, we're creating our own experience, not trying to recreate an experience we saw. And I think that's the empowering part of it. Is it's like, I have nothing to compare to. I have nothing to compare to.
Yes.
Like, me and this person or these people are creating a very unique experience that is unique to us, and it's going to be tailored to our own expressions of pleasure and our own needs. And that is what's empowering, I think, for me at least.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I like that, simplifying it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's share with the audience a little bit about what disempowers us. We kind of answered it. We talked a bit about it, through this kind of notion around performative. But what are some other causes of sexual disempowerment?
I think, well, going right back to it, our school days can give us sexual disempowerment. How we grew up, how everyone else was around us around sex, what we learn from our first sexual from not from our first sexual experience, but what we're learning before we have our sexual experiences. And I think the disempowerment as well can come from imagery that we get from the media, imagery that we get from porn, and even things that people say to us, like bullies or whatever, anything about our bodies, that stores in our bodies. So anything that we have been told that is negative about us is stored as a trauma, and can really cause us to shelter and hide ourselves and not open up in able to be sexually empowered. So disempowering people just being nasty, maybe a sexual experience, one of the first experiences that gone wrong, or maybe obviously there's the really traumatic events of rape and being touched unconsensually. Disempowering, and just people just not being able to how am I supposed to say this? When you're disempowering yourself, that's sexually disempowering. When you're being down on yourself and you're putting yourself down. So if other people put yourself down, that's really disempowering. And then if you put yourself down, and maybe you've even had partners putting you down, that's really sexually disempowering. So it's all about being empowered in everything else in our lives, like with the people that we're around, and like with our family members, and like what we've learned and what society has told us. I don't know whether you've got anything coming up for you when you hear about disempowerment, because I'm wondering whether there's a reflection.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the work that I do. So I work with men who have performance anxiety and erectile dysfunction, and the root cause is shame. Usually that's the biggest thing that I'm working with and supporting them with. And I think a lot of men from a very young age, they fall into that performative mentality, and they learn from porn, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves. They put a lot of pressure on their body. And I think one of the biggest causes of sexual disempowerment for me would be probably comparison. Comparing for men, I'll speak for men, is, comparing the size of our penis to other men, comparing, our sexual experience with a partner to their previous partners. And it just starts to accumulate the pressure, and it becomes a pressure cooker. And this is what causes performance anxieties, because we're so attached to outcome, and we're so attached to things being a certain way, which is, our penis has to remain hard the whole time we're having sex. And I think, again, these are just like massive beliefs that cause us to feel so much pressure, and we're taken out of the moment, we're taken out of the present moment, and we're brought into our minds where we're trying to control the experience. And I think that just completely sucks the pleasure out of sex. And that's the whole purpose of sex, right? It's about reciprocity of pleasure and enjoying the moment and the divinity of the other person and yourself. And I think, so I would say that's a huge one, putting too much pressure on ourselves and on our bodies. And then I would say, being too concerned with our appearance, with how we look, because I think when we're so attached to like getting our worth and our validation for how we feel about ourselves from the mirror or from pictures, when it's going to be very vulnerable when we have to expose ourselves and put ourselves in naked in front of somebody else. And I think there's this element of like learning how to feel good in your body, not just look good. And I think our culture has trained us to be so hyper focused on how we look and less on how we feel. And I think, like you were talking about ecstatic dance before we hopped on. And I just think that's such a beautiful way to learn how to feel good in your body, right? Movement, flow, yoga, dance, these sorts of things where it doesn't really matter how we look. It really is just about, can I enjoy what it feels like to be in my body right now? And I think that's where we learn sexual empowerment, is by learning how to relate to our body in a way that is about authenticity, liberty, sovereignty, these sorts of concepts, and then we bring that into the sexual experience. So I just think that that plays a part in this for sure.
Yeah, thanks for that. What I really got from that was the comparison, and it's like, yeah, it's that thought of like little teen boys going, my dick's bigger than yours. It's awful. I'm laughing, but I know it's awful. It's just nervous giggle. But yeah, it's for I really, really appreciate you sharing that, your thoughts.
Thank you. All right, what are we working with next? We have okay, let's share with the audience some ways that they can learn to be more sexually empowered. We've kind of have shared some things, but let's maybe go into some concrete things that will help with.
Yeah, so I think to be sexually empowered, I think starting simply, it's very important that we have some form of regime for ourselves where we fit in a self-love ritual. We can do a little bit every day by just coming back to ourselves and really giving ourselves nourishment and love. But having like a time even once a week where we have a sexuality practice to ourselves, and it doesn't mean that you have to go into orgasmic state, it doesn't mean that you need to get the vibrator out, but again, it's giving yourself like an hour of self-pleasure completely where you're feeling your whole body and not just your genitals. And I think that can be really, really great. I know that you talked about the mirror and being a bit more, being a bit more kind of like, what do we look like? But really, I think it's really important to be sexually empowered to really appreciate what we look like as well. So little tips like going into the mirror and actually telling ourselves we look beautiful, but without putting on any persona, without makeup, completely bare, completely fresh. And even empowering our own genitals. So getting in the mirror and empowering our own genitals can be super, super brilliant. We talked earlier about the ecstatic dance. And I think dancing is one of the most powerful ways that anyone can get into their own body and really start to appreciate every sensation that you've got going on in your body. It's just that form of expression, and that is really, really empowering. And then you said about using your voice as well earlier, which I think is absolutely amazing. So I think a lot of us, we may have, for me, for example, I didn't find my voice really until like I went on a trip to Israel. And I remember I did a bit of traveling there, and I would go around to people's houses at night and everyone's got musical instruments around, everyone's like singing and playing the drums and whatever, and I'd just sit there, and then they'd be like, here you go, here's an instrument. I'm like, I'm not playing it. And well, why do you use your voice? I'm like, no one's hearing my voice, no one's hearing my voice. And I'm like, why aren't you using your voice? Like, use your voice. And I was like, ugh. And then I did. Ever since then, like, I just feel the energy flowing through me. I think that was like after that trip, I literally was the most zen that I've ever been in my life. I had no like phone or anything, but just really being able to do these things, to get into your body, use your voice. Like singing is such a powerful tool. It's not even singing, but when you're like frustrated at something or happy about something or sad about something, use your voice to show it. Like, being able to use your voice is so powerful. It really just helps things lift up through you. And your sexuality, it doesn't go down like that, like what we do with meditation sometimes. It goes upwards. Like sexual energy, it is energy, and that moves upwards. And voice, so many people have this locked because of the shame that they've taken from life. And I'm getting really into this voice thing now, but it's like once you unblock this, it opens the dimensions to go up into the microcosmic orbit.
Yes, that's so amazing.
So cool. What else can you do? I think even, again, it's like people who you're around and surrounded by can be really, really useful, because you need to be around human beings that support and empower you and don't bring you down. So human beings that are going to argue with you all the time, or just be really negative about so many things, that's not going to sexually empower you. It's not going to make you want to talk to anyone about what's going on in your own sex life or in your own life. So I think it's really important to have people around you that you can truly communicate and talk to about everything that's going on as well. Trying to think of anything else, but you might have found something coming to you, but those are the main things for me that are just like, need that.
Yeah, I love it. I love your passion too. So I'm gonna preface my little monologue here by saying I think it depends on where you're at in the journey, because I think that if you're at the very beginning, and let's say you are somebody that's been watching a ton of porn, your Instagram is full of all these model bodies, and you don't feel good about yourself, I feel like those sorts of imageries can be really toxic and harmful. And I think that maybe one way to empower yourself is to stop following that stuff, stop watching porn for a while, kind of go through a little bit of like a detox. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people, what holds people back from feeling sexually empowered is they compare themselves to others, or they have this conditioning of what is sexy, what is attractive, and it's a box. And they don't see themselves in that box. So then suddenly they're not attractive, right? Where we need to open up this whole notion of what is attractive, because everybody's attractive in their own way. Everybody's got this beautiful radiance about them in their own special way. So we need to start being more attracted to, as human beings, to uniqueness and authenticity, and not, oh, they look like this Barbie doll, or they look like the Ken doll, or whatever. We need to broaden our view of that. So I just think that depending on where you're at in the journey, let's say you're like where I'm at right now, is I'm wanting to invite that more into my life, because I did I starved myself of like, all the porn and the IG models. And now I'm wanting to bring that back in, because that's empowering me now, whereas before it disempowered me. So discernment, I think, is important. So that's my first tip. My second tip would be stop judging others, because the judgments we're hurling out at the world are really just the judgments we're hurling at ourselves on some sort of subconscious way. So if we're shaming people for being sexual, that means that we're shaming ourselves for being sexual. So be mindful of the judgments that we're offering out to the world, and instead of judging others, get curious about why you're feeling activated or charged by the way this person is showing up in front of you. And that will lead you to probably the gateway to your sexual empowerment, in my opinion, or at least it'll point you in the direction of heading in that way. And the last one I think is so important, and I'm learning this about myself, is feeling your feelings. Because I think a lot of times, like if we are more in our minds, it's going to be really, really hard for us to have pleasure-based present moment sex, because in order for us to be present, we need to be in our felt sense. And if we're not in our felt sense, it's likely because we have some sort of dissociation or some sort of repression around our emotional body, that we're not willing to connect with that part of ourselves. So when we start to feel our feelings, I think we allow the essence energy of who we are to flow. And then when it's flowing, we allow ourselves easier access to the present moment, which I think is so crucial to sexual empowerment, is just being embodied, being present, being authentic. All of these things happen when we start to connect to our feelings. So I think that's a big part of it.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, I think I heard your question wrong now. I'm like, oh my God, you've just simplified it so much. But this is all, all the things that I go through with in coaching, but you're simplifying it so well. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no, I think we're a good tandem. I think we approached it from different angles. And I think the audience is going to get a lot out of that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And these angles that you're saying about, they do come up for sure in the coaching and whatnot. but yeah, there's so many different realms about it, isn't it, that you could go down and different avenues. So yeah, I love the simplicity of that. And yeah, it makes me remember where I've come from and where other people have come from as well, and especially men. And because you've grown, yeah, you've grown up in that like men's circles and boys circles, like it's a lot different to what I've actually experienced. So it is really interesting hearing yours, your avenue on it as well. And I think it definitely is interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, last question. How can we help each other become more sexually empowered in relationships?
Communication.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Communication, boundaries, just being able to bloody celebrate each other more. Being happy for each other. And I think it's even important to pull people out on their shit. Yeah. So if someone's like, if someone's doing something that's not, it's affecting them or it's affecting someone else, and being able to say to them, look, this is what I can see from you. And I think it's super important to pull people out on that so that they can grow. Yeah. And right, could you repeat the question? Because
how can we help each other become more sexually empowered in relationships?
So yeah, I talk about sexually empowered in relationships. So you don't even, is this necessarily if people are in a sexual relationship or relationships in general with like friends?
I would say intimate. Yeah. Let's keep it on that intimate spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. So we've talked about communication, boundaries, pulling out on each other's shit, being able to have like a safe space to do all this, and yeah, giving yourself a safe space to do this, and really being able to listen, being present. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent again, so you might have to put me back into line.
I love it. Our minds work very similarly. I have a couple I can share, and then we can just kind of go back and forth.
Please.
So one of the beliefs I think that a lot of us carry around sex is that we don't want to kill the mood, right? We want to keep the mood going. So a lot of us, I think we think that when we start to communicate or we say, oh, I don't really like that, my body doesn't want that, that it's going to kill the mood. So I think some of us just go along with whatever because we don't want to kill the mood. And I just think that sexual empowerment for me is treating the first few times you have sex with somebody as experimental, right? Let's learn about each other's bodies. Let's be curious. Let's not make it so like, oh, it has to be sexy or it has to achieve this goal. Let's just really be fluid and let me feel around and see what feels good for you. And let's communicate a lot. Let's have a lot of eye contact. I think this is an important part of it. So not worrying about killing the mood, I think, is huge. And then the gift that we can offer each other, I think, is not putting pressure on each other's bodies, because a lot of times people are putting pressure on the other person's body, like I want you to come, or come for me, baby, like these sorts of things that you hear in sex. And it's like, oh my God, okay, well now you're like trying too hard to come, and then you can't come because the person's and I think what happens is we put this pressure on ourselves that if they don't come, I didn't do my job. And I think that's we're attaching to something that we don't need to be attaching to, because let that person's body do what that person's body wants to do. And I think we can take pressure off of each other's bodies by, for example, as a man, like I don't want someone putting pressure on my body to have to come, to have to stay hard the whole time we're having sex, to have to read their mind. Like there's so many things, again, that I think we can give each other space to step into empowerment by taking the pressure and the expectations out of the sex and allowing it to just be more flowy. That would be my
exactly. That's really, really important. And there is a massive stigma around, like, I think people have said to me before, when I've, when there's been a thing of calling out rape, and it's like, yeah, but you can't just keep on asking someone if they're enjoying it. It just ruins the mood. And I have had that before from people, like, commenting back and whatnot. And, it doesn't need to ruin the mood. It's like, just, yeah. And if you're able to communicate beforehand as well, and then just say, if you don't like anything, please let me know and we'll change it. And having, like, what you like and dislike can be super empowering just before getting into that notion. And yeah, this come for me baby, oh my god, that was like the worst. That's the worst thing about sex work, like, people who wanted that, because I'd just say, I'm probably not going to. I just tell them straight, I'm probably not going to. Can have fun anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a
like,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, actually, it's the outcome that people are always trying to get, and it's like, it's such a journey. Like, sex and intimacy is just this journey that never ends, and it shouldn't end with something. It should be flowing.
I agree. Yeah, it's a beautiful gift to offer each other in those beautiful moments. Is just like, let it be as it is. Quit trying to project stuff onto each other, because it's just coming from this place of that whole mentality around performing.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Oh, love it when words go wrong. It makes me laugh. Yeah, and you know what, this is another thing for me, really big thing that I want to bring up. Like, sex shouldn't be so serious. Why do people think it needs to be so serious? Is it because of that end goal? Is it because of the ego side of it? Probably, yes. And the thing is, the truth about sex is there's going to be some silly noises, there's going to be embarrassments, there's going to be some flippy floppy whatevers, and like, you're going to maybe try and do something sexy and it doesn't work out the way that you want it to. So it's really, really important to take sex not so seriously and get into the silliness and get into the giggles and allow it all to go through you. Don't suppress anything, because if you have a giggle-gasm, that's probably going to turn into an orgasm times 100 times 1,000.
Yeah. That's such an important message. I'm glad that you captured that, because playfulness is really so important. And I think a lot of us, putting too much pressure on ourselves. We don't allow ourselves to have fun. And that's the whole point of this, right? And I think that also can happen too. Like, if you're the type of person that has like random sex or anonymous sex and stuff, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I think there's a difference between that and having sex with somebody where you've started to develop the safety and the trust and the reliability and these sorts of things. It's a different experience. It's going to allow you to settle into this more embodied presence, authenticity, because it's like you can start to allow yourself to be seen. You can start to show up. And so again, there's different levels of sex, and intimacy and sex are kind of, they're related, but they're not the same thing. And I think it's good to play around in different realms with this stuff, for sure.
Exactly. And it's all about that vulnerability, which if you are just playing around with someone, a lot of people find if you're not embodied in yourself in your day-to-day life, and you can't speak up for yourself and you can't do all this, then how are you going to have the best sex with someone that you've just met? And I mean, you're not going, most likely it's not going to be the best sex that you just met. But a lot of people do also have the best sex ever with people that they don't know.
Yeah.
So you can't ever call off anything. But anyway, it's silliness, vulnerability.
Yeah.
Just be.
Yeah, Yeah, good tips. I want to give you a moment to shout out a couple of the causes that you're supporting right now. Do you want to take a moment and talk a bit about Swarm and Nudeco?
Yeah, so Swarm, I'm going to actually just read it because it's easier for me to do it that way. So Swarm is a collective founded by led sex workers who believe in self-determination, solidarity, and cooperation. They campaign for the rights and the safety of everyone who sells sexual services, and they organize skill shares, then support meetups just for sex workers, as well as public events. It's UK based, but they work all over the globe to try and advocate for full decriminalization of sex work. And this is really, really important and deep, really, really important for me and all the sex workers around there, all people who, have friends, family, everyone, to help the sex workers be safe, to help sex workers have that community so that they are able to speak about it. Because as I said at the beginning, it's something that a lot of people are very quiet about. They don't tell people. And that can put us in very, very unsafe situations. Like, while the majority of people that are seeing sex workers are great, there's like a big amount of people that aren't so great. And if someone's really, really needing money, then you tend to let your boundaries down a little bit, and then you can invite in some really, really scary people. And I've even had the experiences of that myself. And, you really want to be careful with who it is you see. So it's important that these sorts of charities and and people who can gather sex workers together. I know that there's different in Australia, there's one called Red, I believe, I think with double D. But yeah, that's like collectives for sex workers are really, really important for us to know about. So that's Swarm, SWARM.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to shout out this beautiful new brand that sent me some really nice massage oil. And oh gosh, ignore the nail varnish, it's probably chipped. But Nudeco, yeah, it's just this new natural vegan sexual things. Basically, I've got condoms, there's like massage oil, and it smells really nice, like all natural ingredients. And I know you can't smell it, but I can. It's got just really, really lovely natural ingredients. And cool. There's lubricant as well, and personal moisturizer, because especially with yonis, like there's a lot of dryness that can happen after sex, and the moisturizer can help that. So I just wanted to shout out this company because it's absolutely epic, and cool. I really like what they've come out with.
Nice. Keep your yonis moisturized, folks.
Yeah. Keep your yonis moisturized. It's so important. It really is.
Yeah.
To be honest, it'd be nice for dicks as well. Like,
yeah, you got to keep your dick moisturized too, and clean. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So important.
Yeah. And then you're working with people one-on-one across the globe to get to the core of sexuality issues, to help strengthen authenticity and sexual wellness for the rest of their lives. And that can be found at ecstaticallyginger.com.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere else that you want to direct people to? Your Instagram?
Instagram, I'm on that way more often than I should be. So yeah. Ecstatically.ginger on Instagram. I don't tend to use Facebook. Maybe I'll do that one day. But mainly just Instagram right now. And then my email, which is ecstatically.ginger@gmail.com. I did post to YouTube. I think that's Ecstatically Ginger as well on YouTube. So we'll see what happens there. Cool. And yeah, that's how you can get in contact with me if you'd like to. I also offer tantric massages. So if anyone's in England and is interested in that, then mainly Bristol, but I do go around places a lot. So if anyone's in England and they want a tantric massage, you can get a bit of these hands.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming and spending the hour. I know you have an ecstatic dance class to go to, so I don't want to keep you too long.
Oh, thanks so much. You've not kept me too long. I've got
Okay.
a bit of time.
Yeah, I know the audience is going to really benefit from this conversation, and I think it's going to open some minds and challenge some people's beliefs, and I think that's good. So for the audience, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate. And if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when I release content each week. And please leave any comments that you might have or questions that you might have for Ginger or myself on this episode, and I'll be sure that Ginger sees them. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify or any other podcast network, please give me a 5-star review and write a comment, write a review, because I'm going to be reading them now in the episode. So yeah, much love to you, and thanks again, Ginger. And have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, Matt, for having me. It's been amazing. I've really enjoyed it.
It has been, yeah, for sure. All right.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.